You're someone with a vision for your practice, for your side hustle, and for your personal journey. But when it comes to establishing your path on how to get to where you want to be with your practice, things get a little messy. You're also someone who'd prefer to go in person instead of to groups and listening to everyone else's story. To me, it sounds like you could benefit from one-on-one consulting with our experienced practice of the practice consultants. From $5.95 a month and up, you can work with a consultant that will give you more direction and practical tried and tested tips matched to you and your goals. For more information, visit practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1313. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast, where we help you build a thriving practice that you absolutely love. In this series, Brandon, one of our consultants, is going to be doing a number of these shows. This is a reverse podcast from his shows that aired over on the Grow Group podcast. So we're really excited to have him take over for a number of weeks with some of these shows, and we just can't wait to have you learn from Brandon. So here we go.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Grow Group Practice Podcast. I'm going to leave that in there just because it's interesting hearing me fumble over my words after having done this for a number of times. In this episode, we're going to wrap up the three-part series of the three components to growth. If you haven't listened to the first two episodes or parts of this series, I encourage you to go back and listen to them, because they this last component flows quite naturally from the first two, in particular the discipline, because when you determine if success can inspire prolonged lingering inside nasty environments, and you begin to embrace challenges for the sheer exercise of growth and personal growth and development, there is a need to begin to bring some balance or some harmony, so to speak, to this newfound way of thinking and a way of approaching life. And so in this last part, I'm going to talk about humility. Humility. What exactly is humility? Now, the way that I tend to work and function, and hopefully you got this, and so when I'm saying this, it'll just be you hearing a repeat of the way that I like to do things. But I'm an educator as well as a clinician, and so I love some people talk about pedagogies in terms of teaching, and I tend to have a more of an andragogy approach, which means I blend this art and science, but I also want people to understand the reason that they are doing something, the reason that we are engaging in a particular activity. And now, with exploring this third component, that is humility, it's important for me to examine the traditional sense of humility and then this non-traditional sense of humility, and then get the powerful connection between humility and sustainable growth, specifically as you are building and you're well on track to having a robust group practice that is firing on all cylinders. And then we want to talk about how learning how to embrace humility can enhance your leadership and your personal development. Right? So I love to define the terms that we're using so that we're all springing and thinking from a similar sheet of music. And so in a traditional sense, humility is defined as the quality or condition of being humble. Think lowly. It's traditionally seen or defined as having a modest opinion of one's own importance. And I just want to pause there for this second and say, just like I had said in the other series, my ethos, my philosophy of things is that it's not good or bad. It is, but most of what causes us to evaluate a condition, a viewpoint, a position, whatever the case may be, as good or bad, is typically the outcome, and it also has it's an outworking from the experiences that we have with a particular word, a person, a people group, or what have you. So when you think about having a modest opinion of one's own importance, that's not necessarily a horrible thing. It's really the way that it is impressed upon us sometimes in modern society. Now, given this definition, it is understandable why so many people who are higher achievers might not subscribe openly, at least, to this more conventional view of humility. And one of the troubles that I see with this, and this is kind of what my experience with this traditional view of humility has been, is that it typically is depicted as a weakness, right? And so, what do I mean by um, typically conditioned or viewed as a weakness? I want to give you some of the implications of this traditional view, and I'm going to do this in a couple of ways. So, consider some of the synonyms of being humble or having humility: meek, deferential, submissive. So, meek and deferential, you probably won't have too much of a negative experience with, but submissive, you start getting into that more oppressed kind of view of things. Unassertive, my goodness, you're talking about a person not having the energy or the ability to assert oneself. We typically teach people how to assert themselves, or another way of thinking about that is advocating for themselves, specifically from a mental health space. Sycophantic, right? People that are sycophants, we don't see them, we don't view them as a positive quality, a positive trait. Low ranking, my. Humiliate, belittle, demean, degrade, being a plebeian, right? So if you are a plebe, you see how the interactions and the experiences. Now, you might notice that by hearing me even recite some of these synonyms, a person might say, nah, humility is not for me. But that's on the low side. Now I'm going to share with you some antonyms. Now there are not many antonyms that really comes to mind for me, but some that also tends to have a more negative quality associated with them. Being proud, being overbearing, or being noble, someone of a higher prestige. You might also supplement privilege with this. And you think about that in a sense, and how it really, specifically today, those words that are the opposite of what it means to be humble or to be a person of humility, those also are not positive. And so now that leaves us with this middle space where you kind of are vacillating, moving, swinging from pendulum to pendulum, end to end. And and that's a really difficult thing. So now I want you to consider what is your association or connection with that mindset. What is your association? Do you tend to lean more towards having a negative quality or seeing humility as a negative quality? Do you see it as, you know, okay, the opposite of humility is to be proud, or to the opposite of being humble is to be proud. And I don't like being proud, and I definitely don't like being submissive, or I don't like being overbearing. So in all qualities, most of our experience, specifically once you start getting from meek and differential, that all the other ones seem to have this negative connotation to them. We don't see them as qualities or character traits that we want to possess. So, what is an alternative view to this humility? I tend to think of humility as a state or quality of being And there's this blend that happens between strength, compassion, and openness. We bring all of those um, concepts, those qualities together. And, and what is different about the way I think about this blend is that it remains in flux. The mixture changes, giving the situation, not the person. And this is vitally important. And perhaps I'll express and expound upon this a little bit more a little bit later. But as a boss, because as a practice owner, a group practice owner, you are the boss, like it or not. We tend, because we have been trained in this mental health and therapeutic space, to be compassionate, to be open, to not judge, to be accepting. And we really don't talk about the strength that's necessary. And so we tend to lead a lot with compassion and openness. Again, not bad things. We're just missing this quality that can help bring a little more balance. And it is essential if you need to change the course of direction with your practice, or you need to implement some changes in all of those things. And so remember, part two, we talked about discipline. And one of the questions was knowing if the environment is ready for the direction that you want to take your practice. Now, I'm not saying it exactly how I said it um, in the last part. So please go and watch that, or listen to it, I should say, and get exactly how I framed that question. But when you blend this, it's never, when you lead with strength, it's never in response to the person. So you separate the behavior that's being corrected from the person. And that is even important to talk to the person about this, to say, it's not, I'm not, as an extension, you are being corrected, but that's not really what the correction is about. It's about this behavior, this outcome. And that takes strength. And I want to draw this comparison of humility and the strength, the compassion, and the openness. And I want to compare it to water. So, water comes in various forms. I'm not going to list all of them. I just want to highlight some of them. Rain showers, you have bodies of water, you have rivers, you have lakes, you have the sea, the ocean, etc. You have indoor plumbing, where you're bringing water from the outdoors into the indoors for convenience. You have snow, nice little soft things that, flakes that come from the sky during certain times of the year if you stay in climates that are inclined to get colder and the temperatures shift. Then you have tsunamis, same, still water. Now you might notice that this is getting a little bit maybe destructive, right? Ice cubes, it's water in a concentrated state. But the floods, again, here we go. Water has the ability to be destructive. Hurricanes, which causes a lot of flooding, it draws water from the ocean or the sea, and it brings it in, and it makes landfall. You have hailstorms, but then you also have blizzards and avalanches. Now, all of that is water in one form or another. And yet it's our experience of the water in that moment that will be dependent upon how it's showing up. But really, essentially, all of the variations of the water that I spoke to are just a reflection of what's going on in the moment. So you have hurricane season. You have seasons where tsunamis are more likely than not. It doesn't mean that it's always going to happen. It's just a season, right? And atmospheric stuff and all of that happens. Indoor plumbing. Maybe you start having, right? Indoor plumbing is good until you have a leak in one of your pipes that's bringing the water in, And now you have water damage in your home. When it's contained in the pipes, it's a good thing. When the pipes burst and the water creates a problem, damaging maybe your carpet or your ceiling or something like that, depending upon how many stories you have, it becomes less enjoyable. It creates a frustrating situation, right? So now I want to look at water I want to put the water in how I would see compassion, strength, and openness. So on the compassionate side, you have the rain showers. And those things, the rain showers, if you're inclined to enjoy the rain and playing in the rain like me, the rain showers are not necessarily a thing. It's really gentle. It's easy. It's not hurting your skin as it's hitting you. It's just an enjoyable shower. Sometimes it's a dreary day and it creates the opportunity for you to relax and, be a little bit sleepy and maybe take it easy. When you have bodies of water, they're enjoyable. Right? You go to the river, you go to the lake, you go to the pool. All of those are containments of water, and you splash and you play around and you enjoy it. Same thing with snow. When snow is coming down, especially when you don't have to shovel it, it's fantastic. If you're in a place like where I'm at now in Maryland and you get enough snow that the things kind of shut down, but there's enough snow for you to go out and play, it takes me back to my childhood. You go out and build snowmen, and you get the snow structure going. You can build forts, have snowball fights, you can jump in the snow, go sledding, all of those things. It's fun. That's a form of compassion because it's just enough that it's not creating a problem for you. Indoor plumbing, the same thing. It's kind of talked about it. The pipes when they're working, that's such a compassionate thing because now you have indoor plumbing. You can use the restroom and shower and stuff inside. And ice cubes, that's we keep our drinks cool with ice cubes and all of that stuff.
I want to thank Headway for sponsoring this episode. As a group practice leader, you know that insurance and admin work can take up hours every week. Time you could be spending with clients or growing your team. Benefits reset season is the perfect opportunity to make improvements to those processes. That's why I personally recommend Headway for group practices. Headway lightens your load with fast and free insurance credentialing and admin support, plus offers competitive per-session rates and bi-weekly payments your team can count on. They're the only platform designed specifically for in-network group practices, and they work with therapy, psychiatric, and hybrid groups of all sizes. Thousands of group practice leaders use Headway to simplify insurance admin and reach more people through in-network care. The best part, there's no subscription fees. Now's a great time to join. With Headway, you'll be helping more people get the care they deserve while supporting your team with more clients and a lighter admin load. Make next year the best year yet for your group practice. Head on over to join.headway.co/Joe. That's join.headway.co/Joe to book a tour.
Now, strength kind of is the spot where it might become a little bit problematic, and we might have a negative experience with these same components of water. So ice cubes are good when they are keeping your drink cool. They're not good when they're being chucked at you, especially those the refrigerators can create the nice little squares that are really thick, or the orbs, right, that are really round, and it takes a lot of water to make those. You throw that at somebody with some aim and some precision, it can create a problem, right? And that experience of the ice cube would be different. Tsunamis, it's water, but we're experiencing it different because it's creating a problem for us. In the United States, we don't really have to worry about tsunamis. Those happen in other areas, other parts of the world. But floods happen. Floods happen a lot. As a matter of fact, we was in, at the time of this recording, there was a horrendous flood that happened in Texas. Hurricanes created floods in North Carolina, South Carolina, parts of Florida, and all of these were parts of those particular states. Here in Maryland, not too long ago, maybe a couple months back, we had a lot of rain and it created some flooding, so much so that the water table actually covered one of the outhouses in one of the spaces that we like to go to walk on the trail. And when I say we, I'm talking about my wife and I. And so that was, a horrendous thing. When you think about the bodies of water, the lakes and the ponds and the rivers and stuff, they're good until you get to the point where the water is coming over you or you get swept up in the current. Now that same body of water has the ability to be devastating. And I'm going somewhere with this, so I'm just owning and honoring the fact that the experience with the water changes and is determined by the situation, by the moment. Hurricanes, the same thing. Hailstorms. Right? We take snow and it gets frozen and it comes down really hard. We don't like that. Right? It takes the snow and then it creates a problem. And this can be damaging as well, creating dings in your car, creating cracks in your windshield, things like that. Blizzards and avalanches. You get trapped in, you have a snow blizzard that's trapped in, that traps you in your house, that creates a problem. If you are one that goes skiing and you're enjoying the snow in that sense, and then there's an avalanche that happens, that can be detrimental. And I look at all of those components of water as a strength. And I'll make this make sense in a moment. Now, openness is, you have blizzards and avalanches. When the blizzard is just the blizzard, its openness is expansive, as well as the hailstorm. It's not just concentrated on you, it's the entire area geographically. Same thing with hurricanes. There is an openness to it. I'm not saying that the outcome is, open or accepted or wanted. I'm just talking about the expansiveness of this water in these various forms. The floods, the tsunamis, snow can be the same thing. It's open, it covers a great degree of a geographical area. And then that indoor plumbing, again, it's openness. It allows you to have water running in multiple places. So in my home, we can have, several people can be taking a shower at one time. That's openness. That's expansiveness. It takes us to another level. And then the bodies of water, the same thing. You can just sit. I'm in just transparency. I'm allergic to salt water. So, I can't, we stay on the eastern shore, so I can't get into the Atlantic Ocean and not, well, I could get into the Atlantic Ocean, but I know that I will break out and I would need to take a Benadryl on the back end of that, right? But I can observe that water and I can appreciate it in its openness and its expansion. Okay. And so what are we talking about when we say humility and the sustainable growth? What's the connection? What's the connection? Well, when you talk about embracing humility in its this form, this blend of strength, compassion, and openness, you recognize that there are times when you might need to be in more strength based, come from strength. It's not that you don't have compassion or openness, but you say, as the practice owner, I'm taking this practice in this space. Okay. So maybe you are a cash pay only practice and you've expanded, but you recognize that in order to get to this next level, in order to get to a 7-figure practice, I need to get paneled with some insurance companies because, otherwise I'm going to spend a lot of money on marketing and it's not something that I want to do. But you already have a group practice with a few people that are used to getting, full fee for their, or whatever the rate of their fee is. And to begin to take insurance, that means that you might have to restructure the payments and the way that they are paid and the frequency in which they are paid as well. Just by deciding that you want to get paneled with some insurance companies. To make that decision and execute it it means that you have to have some strength. You can maintain compassion and openness to some of the complaints that might arise, but ultimately, if that's the direction that you're going to go, because you say, in order for me to grow sustainably to a mega group practice or a multi-state practice, I need to be paneled with insurance companies, especially if you're in a market where a vast majority of people have insurance that they want to use. Right? So I need to make this growth decision so my practice is sustained, and there are people that work with me that are not on board. Well, that comes to having a difficult conversation, really. And you can do that. You got to have that strength. This is where the strength component really comes into play, because then it fortifies you as you're handling and navigating this difficult conversation. And again, maintaining that openness and connection, and the openness and compassion, I should say, and really getting to that point. And that's the importance of it, because every decision that you make as the practice owner could come with some pushback from those that are a part of your practice. You say, I want to grow and I want to grow sustainably, but my group practice is currently W-2 employee, 1099 employees. And I know that because the direction that I want to take the practice, it's best to convert to W-2s. You really talk about a pay cut, especially if you have something like a 60-40 split with your clinicians. That conversation is going to require some strength as well as compassion and openness. And we, as therapists, we have compassion and openness in spades, because that's really the way a lot of our programs teach us, right? And I'm in a process as a professor, just bring in this anecdotal experience. One of the things that I'm helping my students understand is that you need to have this ability to confront a client in a situation, right? Confrontation or challenging. Those are micro skills that we talk about and we never demonstrate. We talk about them as micro skills, but we never demonstrate them. And giving my students an opportunity to explore that increases their capacity and increases their confidence in navigating what could be some difficult clients. And similarly, all I'm doing is when I do that with my students, I'm just introducing a strength component to to the qualities of compassion and openness that they already have by going through the counseling program. Right? And it's the same thing as a practice owner. Now, if you are on the heels of developing your practice, then this is going to be a lot easier for you, because you do not have anybody working for you currently. Okay? So you can make the decision to be a W-2 employee now. Before you even hire people, you can make the decision to be on insurance panels now before you even hire people. So that when people come on board, they already know that I'm a W-2 or 1099, whichever way you decide to hire, and I'm going to be paneled with these insurance companies, because that's how it's set up. Right? And that's where I'm at myself. So I made the decision to get paneled with insurance companies prior to hiring anyone, so that we already have this issue hammered out. Okay. So now hopefully I've sold you on this idea of incorporating strength into your compassion and openness as a practice owner and as a group practice owner, and taking the compassion, taking the openness, adding that third quality that we call strength, and you're ready to get started. And you're like, okay, well, I haven't. If you're like me, you say, well, I didn't get trained on how to be more assertive, and because it's a bad thing. I consider assertiveness a bad thing, or being proud, or being overbearing. Those are qualities that I'm not used to. So I got some questions for you to ask that will help you begin to cultivate this humility. Right? So this is going to be a little longer question than some of the other ones from parts 1 and 2. So, given what I have learned about the non-traditional view of humility, what starter blend, emphasis on starter blend, of compassion, openness, and strength might I want to cultivate? Now, I want you to keep in mind that this is about finding a blend that is authentic or genuine to how you want to show up in life. And so I would say this this starter blend is, you can think about this as being akin to a theoretical orientation. Right? So what is that foundational piece that you want to have? Right? That's the nice blend. And it's from this form of humility it, that embraces the fact that not everyone is going to be okay with how you show up, and you're okay with that. You, to a degree, you must be okay with that, especially as a group practice owner, and a group practice owner that is looking to expand and grow your business and scale your business, or have your business remain sustainable. Now, specifically, what you want to do is you want to consider, how might this new blend impact my business? Remember, especially this question is, if you are in the beginning phases of expanding to a group practice, how might this blend impact my business in terms of the people that I bring on board? Because it's going to change once you get this blend of compassion, openness, and strength that is foundational, or the starter blend. That's going to bleed into how you interview people. So it means that even though a person might be, what by all accounts, they might be a perfect fit, there is something that you say, nah, don't hire them. And now you got to have the strength to say, no, I'm not going to extend an offer to you. Okay. If you are already a group practice owner and you're looking to scale, you're saying, I want to expand a little bit. How might this new blend impact my business in a sense of, is this going to make people leave? Will people decide that they don't want to get paneled with insurance companies, and so they decide that they're going to cut ties and go to a different place? How might this impact my business? You have to know this, think about it. It may not come to pass, but you are allowing yourself at this point to consider all of the possibilities. And even more so, if you are a group practice owner that is firing on all cylinders, and to you want to create or maintain your sustainability. You're doing this thing that means making some different changes. Maybe you are on, this might mean that you're on an insurance panel, that you have a lot of people, but the pay rate is not enough to make it sustainable as you go to the next level. And you have to make a decision to exit that panel. And what might that mean to my business? Right? Because that's a strength thing. Now, the next question that you want to ask as you go through all of the possibilities is, to what degree am I okay with this potential disruption? And I say potential disruption because we don't know if it's going to happen or not. We just are considering the angles. We're considering the possibilities. And I would be remiss if I was to try to paint this with all flowery colors and terms, and not honor the fact, and not acknowledge the fact, really, that you're going to make some decisions. I'm going to make some decisions in my business that some people might not like. Right? So you think about it and then say, to what degree am I okay with this potential disruption? If it means that all of your workforce leaves, are you okay with that? Well, maybe not. Okay, maybe we need to think about how to slowly do this thing instead of doing it all at once. Okay. Or if you are and you say, okay, I know this is going to happen, so now I need to think about how many other people I need to hire to keep my practice, my group practice, at a sustainable level. The variations are many. I'm only offering a few. The second question to cultivate humility is, what internal resistance might I encounter while developing this blend? All right. So this is kind of similar to the mindset shift. And it's important to understand and accept that despite how awesome this new view of humility might be, we have to consider that some people, that's something internally, right? Internally, when I say that, that's inside of you. And there might be some external stuff as well, but internally, it's the things that I, the views and the opinions that I have about people that, seem to not care how their decisions impact people. I notice I said seem to care, and not they don't care. They just seem to not care. And but if you have if you say, nah, I don't like that, and I don't want to be that type of person, that might create an issue, and it might interfere with you walking in this new form of humility. There might be some external people as well, some people that are external to you in your world that might interfere with walking in this new form of humility as well, because people are used to you being open and compassionate and saying yes when you really want to say no, and then you start saying no, and now these people are not okay with you anymore, potentially. So specifically, when you think about the internal resistance that you might encounter while developing this blend of humility, you want to consider, how might my business grow from the adaptation of humility in its new form? I've got my starter blend of strength, compassion, and openness. I'm fine with this. Now, how might my business grow from this adaptation and implementation of humility? And then personally, how might I grow from the adaptation of this new form of humility? In what ways do you benefit personally as well as your business? Because and I want to ensure that not only your business benefits, but you as a person benefit from this ability. And that extends outward from just thinking about business to other relationships that you might have. Saying yes when you really want to say no. Committing to things that you don't have the time for. And then you start saying, nah, I need to start taking my time back. Or you've overcommitted yourself to things and you're saying, you know what, I really want to cut some things back so that I can really get really good and develop in this one area. And I really love that. Now I'm excited about it. Maybe you want to do your expansion into group practice is so that you can find a way to do other things that you're interested in, supervision or consulting or podcasting or creating courses or ebooks or whatever, or writing a traditionally published book. All of that, by learning to cut things out that and say no to things that you once said yes to. And this is, just times, areas where you're spending your time. You go through and you say, man, now that I cut that stuff off, I'm I found that I have more time to engage in self-care. I have more time to do the things that I want to do. And I'm okay if it means that I have to say no, because I get to explore this whole vast new area of life and I grow as a person. All right. So thank you for hanging out with me over the course of these three parts, these three components to humility. Um, Thank you for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a nice day, and we'll talk soon.
We could not do this show without our amazing sponsors. And today, Headway is our sponsor. If you are looking for help running your practice and want the best group practice you can have, you're going to want to sign up with Headway. They are trusted by thousands of group practice leaders to simplify their insurance admin and reach more people through in-network care. If you're curious about how Headway can help work for you, head on over to join.headway.co/Joe. That's join.headway.co/Joe to learn more. Thank you for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.